We are the Atlanta Global Research Education Collaborative. We are a consortium of 7 universities: Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Kennesaw State University, Agnes Scott's College, Spelman College, Emory University, and Clark Atlanta University. We're so happy to have our panelists today participating in this panel on the AGREC projects. We have 4 projects that we're going to be speaking about today. The first one is empowering multilingual communities. Jayoung, Choi, and Lee Hyunjeong from Georgia Tech and Kennesaw State. We also have Decolonial Feelin with Tiphanie, Yanique from Emory. We have also the Prairie House Project, which has been a part of the Atlanta Global Studies Center for a couple of years with Charmaine, Minniefield. And finally, Global Learning for a Lifetime with Seneca Vaught from Kennesaw State University and Heather Scott from Georgia Tech. So I would like to begin by asking our panelists if they can speak a little bit about their projects, if they can describe their projects, and also share some of the goals and outcomes of the projects. Yeah, so I will pass the mics here. Thank you so much. And they have some slides too.
Okay,
so,
yes. Hello, hello.
We can start with
Yeah.
Whatever's behind of us.
yeah. Oh, since we have the presentations on a sequence, we will start in order, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so I guess among these panelists here, I guess we're the first one. They will talk about our project. It's called Empowering Multilingual Communities in Atlanta and South Korea. And it's a new partnership with the Georgia Association of Multilingual Multicultural Education. So I'm Jayoung Choi. I'm a faculty from Kennesaw State University. And
I'm Lee Hyunjeong from Georgia Tech.
so 2 of us, and along with other colleagues that we have here, we partnered to actually work with Gaume, whose president is right here. So basically to promote multilingualism in Atlanta and also in South Korea. So we are the PIs here, and then we have also another faculty member So the global issue that we acknowledged in our project was there's dominance of high status languages, marginalizing heritage languages, and also in the U.S. context, then there's English-only schooling, devalues immigrant languages. And it's a parallel issue in South Korea as well, where immigrant mothers avoid using their even native language due to social stigma attached to the languages, and some of them do not even teach or speak the heritage language to their children in Korea. So basically, we wanted to just bring together like mentor and mentees, so mentors who speak heritage languages, who are in college at Georgia Tech, and also recruit mentees, middle and high school students who are from immigrant backgrounds who speak heritage languages from South Korea as well as Atlanta. And we wanted to pair these 2 together to speak their heritage languages and also to interact virtually, and then talk about their immigration history, their parents' history and stories, and also their identity, their linguistic and cultural identity, and also eventually could create a digital story about their pairs. And the partnership with Gaume is to bring these stories and kind of publish it in the Gaume's website. So that's one component of the partnership that we had envisioned. So I think I talked mostly about this slide. What's on the slide? So again, the key deliverables that we planned was, again, updating the Gaume website, which needed a lot of some more work, and also add some more multimedia, basically the digital stories that these pairs created, as well as some of the resources and the processes that these pairs took. So basically develop this bilingual education narratives from basically these lived experiences and stories. And finally, later, just have conference presentations as well as publications out of this research. So we had to recruit participants for this project. So again, from the Georgia Tech side, so we ended up recruiting 8 college students who spoke different heritage languages, who are fluent. And also, actually, we recruited students from Hyunjeong's class, the Korean class. So many of the students who are multilinguals with a heritage background in another language, they have some proficiency in Korean as well. And then, so we use these flyers to recruit these students. And also, we recruited the middle schoolers and high schoolers in our community here at Atlanta, and also from South Korea. So these are the participants that we ended up having. So you can see this is a variety of different languages. So like Farsi speaker at Georgia Tech, female was matched with here, Atlanta, male student, 6th grade, who speak Farsi as one of the heritage languages. And then you can see the rest of it. So Spanish and Korean, Tamil, and Japanese Mandarin, Russian, Vietnamese. So again, 4 of these pairs, the younger ones are from South Korea, and then the other 4 is from Atlanta. So we had also with the college students at Georgia Tech, we gave them orientation about what this project about. So when Hyunjeong was recruiting the students, gave them information about it, and then explained what this project entails. So this project actually took place about, 2 to 3 months. So the pairs were interacting with each other virtually, mainly. And then we also collected essays from the college students about why they want to participate in this. And
before starting the research, we request that students write an essay about their background information and then the linguistic experience. For example, a Mandarin student said, despite some initial difficulties, I love communicating regularly in Mandarin. It makes me feel connected to my own heritage, feeling like a second home. Okay. So Spanish heritage students said one of the biggest factors that contributes to this huge achievement was the ability to speak multiple languages.
So what we see in these essays from the college students is that the very common discourse and scenario that we see when they're growing up here in the U.S. From immigrant background, they didn't appreciate, learning or knowing another language, their parents' language basically. But then as they get older and when they came into the college, they really realized that the importance of their heritage and the culture and language. So that was a very common thread that we saw.
Yeah, each group met once a week, okay, for 30 to 60 minutes, okay, to discuss a given topic for over 3 months, okay. So all meetings were recorded, okay, and then mentors kept a written log, okay. So.
Yeah, so they had to upload their recorded sessions to a shared drive, and then also keep up with their written research log so that we can keep track of what they're discussing and then what's next.
Okay, so initially the mentees felt it's not comfortable to speak their heritage language because they're not fluent. Okay, so they prefer to speak, English, okay, other than their heritage language. However, mentees mostly try to speak heritage language. Okay, so a comparison of each team is the first and the last video shows significant improvement. Okay, their language skills, proficiency in heritage language skills. Each team has to create their digital stories. Beginning in 6 weeks, we encourage them to discuss the topic, the given topic, and share their ideas and so opinions about their final project is a digital stories. Okay. So it's based on what they have been sharing through regular virtual meetings.
So a lot of the common things that we saw in the final digital stories is that they talked about their parents' immigration stories from both the mentee and the mentor. So the mentees have to research that from their parents if they didn't know that before they came to the project. And they also incorporated, again, how they interpreted their own linguistic and cultural identity. So then they put together this story. And then these are the ones from the South Korea and then the 4 college student, the pairs. So it was really interesting to see how these 4 pairs were interacting. So whereas the Atlanta-based students paired with the college students here, of course, their common language was English, right? The dominant language, English here. But then in the ones interacting with South Korea, the Korean was not the common language necessarily because these college students did not necessarily use or had a proficiency in Korean to the degree that they could communicate in Korean. So they used all their linguistic repertoires to really communicate together. So that was really interesting.
On March 8th, all participants in this research gathered at Georgia Tech, except the mentees who live in Korea. So they greeted each other, okay, shared a meal, okay, toured at Georgia Tech campus, and exchanged the culture by in-person interaction. Okay.
So it was the first time for them to meet in person because they had been communicating virtually. And they got to really hear other people's stories as well. And it kind of created that sense of community that who participated in this project. They were doing this by themselves, like, in silo. And also it was intentionally planned for the mentees to feel inspired, to also think about college for their education and, see their mentors as role models. So it was a wonderful opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, this allowed the participant to understand each other very well, okay, and become more open-eyed, okay, open-mind, about the different cultures.
Yeah. So they're actually presenting their stories here when we met in person. Yeah. So I guess if the time allows, we're gonna play just a little bit of their presentation.
Clip, of the presentation.
I don't know if we have time.
I don't know.
Just
It's
one.
1 minute. 1 minute. Okay.
Yeah. So this was a Tamil group. Oh. The links might have been moved. Yeah. Okay, it's okay then. Yeah. Okay. How do we go to the presentation mode?
Thank you.
So what's happening now is we started with some follow-up interviews of these participants. So so far we finished conducting 2 interviews with one Farsi-speaking mentor and then one Spanish-speaking mentor. And then we can see that for mentors themselves too, it was a learning experience for them to really interact with a younger person who share the same heritage language, and which they don't really get to have that interaction a lot of. So like this one person, a Farsi-speaking mentor, talked about how if she had met this mentee, 6th grader, outside of this context, then she would have just communicated in English without really thinking. But then she really made this project made her really speak Farsi, the heritage language, with the mentee, and how she felt like she was kind of being a role model for this child. Yeah. So we have some, the project is not completed yet, so it's still ongoing. So we are planning to do a visit to South Korea this June to share this project with the international partners that we have, and also to invite those Korea-based students, the mentees, to also present their work. And then tentatively organize a workshop for the international partners. And then also our work with, our collaboration with the Gaome is still ongoing. So we plan to discuss how to publish that final work from the participant, the 8 pairs, into this website so that this can be used to further disseminate and share, the multilingual stories and inspire other multilingual communities. So, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So next we're going to have Tiphanie. And I need to apologize because I'm attacked by allergies. So, yeah.
Welcome to Atlanta. The work you guys are doing sounds so interesting and so transformative to those pairs. So thank you for that project. The earth moved. It sang and sighed and then settled down. Solo could feel this. Solo could hear it. The earth moved. Solo will say this to his own son someday, trying to explain. The ground moved beneath my feet, they say this even now. When the earth moves, we all know something momentous has occurred, and it was the season in St. Croix for earth moving. Any day now, everyone said, the earth will shake and we will be changed by it. The earth moved. Solo will say later, again and again to anyone listening, and he will mean this way and that way and every which way. Good afternoon. I am Tiphanie Yanique. I'm a professor at Emory University. I'm a novelist and a poet, and I'm introducing Decolonial Feeling Symposium, which was a symposium held over the course of this past year, a multi-pronged project with symposiums here in Atlanta and in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The symposium's grand purpose is also to be thinking not only about the Virgin Islands, but also about America's other colonial holdings in the Pacific Islands. So that's Guam, American Samoa, the Mariana Islands, and then to come back to the Caribbean and look also at Puerto Rico, eventually culminating in a symposium that brings all the colonial holdings together here in Atlanta. But this past year, we just started. The symposium started first last year around this time in St. Thomas, which is my home island, with white papers delivered by the members of the Virgin Island Studies Collective. And at that symposium, we delivered papers on the work of activists, laborers and activist actors in the Virgin Islands as they relate to the natural environment. So each of us took a particular environmental like element. So one of us took air, one of us took land, one of us took fire, and I, for example, took water. And we looked at different protests in the Virgin Islands that were connected to that. So in my case, for example, the paper I presented at that symposium was on beach rights activism in the Virgin Islands. In the Virgin Islands, every beach is free to anyone, which is a very rare thing in the Caribbean. Most Caribbean islands that you may have visited, only the tourists can go unless locals often have to pay to go. Or maybe they're not even admitted even if they do pay. In the Virgin Islands, we had a beach protest movement in the 1960s and 70s, actually led by graduates of Clark Atlanta University who were Virgin Islanders. And they learned their tactics of civil rights movement at Clark Atlanta and took that back home to the Virgin Islands, so that now every beach in the Virgin Islands must have free access from land and from sea. And each of us presented something like that. And that started in March of last year. Then we came to Atlanta, where we presented here in September. And one of the cool things about our presentation that we did here in Atlanta was it also involved an art exhibit that rainbowed across Atlanta, one exhibit at the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum, and a companion exhibit at Emory University. This is our elemental protest panel that I just spoke about. This is also an example of some of the workshops that we did. At the symposium, one of the main elements that we wanted to try and communicate was that decolonial work is community work, and we also offered free workshops on our particular expertise to anyone who could sign up. There were small workshops so that they could be super informative. This is an example of Dr. Tammy Navarro presenting her workshop. She's an anthropologist from the Virgin Islands. Dr. Hadiya Sower presented a workshop on ritual ceremony and altar making. This was also on the campus of Clark Atlanta University. And I presented a talk on decolonial fiction writing for burgeoning novelists and storytellers. LaVon Bell, I'll go back to this one, who is a visual artist on our team. As I said, she had an exhibit at Clark Atlanta Museum and at the Carlos Museum. And these are just some examples of the work that she was working on and pictures from the symposium itself. The symposium was a small part of a project that not only was a symposium, but also was a course that was taught between Clark Atlanta and Emory University that I led. It was a graduate course on decolonial practice and thought. And that course had those graduate students helping plan the symposium, but also doing research into decolonial thought and practice. A lot of what we were focusing on was the idea that feeling is an important part of the decolonial reality. And it's not only about national decoloniality, but it's also about personal and imaginative decoloniality. So I started off this presentation with you by reading a passage from a piece that I actually wrote for the symposium. I presented the entire piece at the symposium. And at our final iteration of the symposium happened in February of this year in St. Croix. And all the presenters presented in art, specifically thinking through the ways in which artistic practice as a way to decolonize your own imagination, your interiority, is an important part of any decolonial movement. So we also used a book by Dr. Bettina Judd. Her book is called Feelin, and her book talks about the ways in which Black feminist practice of emotional embodiment helps create freedoms for Black feminist actors. And we thought through the ways in which that could also help create freedoms for people from the Virgin Islands, and maybe eventually also thinking through those kinds of freedoms in Guam, American Samoa, the Mariana Islands, and then again back to Puerto Rico. I'm going to close my presentation by playing a 5-minute clip from the St. Croix Symposium. And the St. Croix Symposium was the final iteration of this part of the symposium. It's really important to us that the symposia that we're doing happen here in Atlanta, but also happen on the site that we're working with, so that the people who we're engaging with, studying, thinking alongside with, also get the benefit of of the information, but also get to interact with us and learn alongside us, teach us, learn from us. So I'll play this for you. And then I'm looking forward to, after we've all presented, to answering questions and maybe also finding more partnerships, because again, the idea is this is a long-term project. And I'd love to work in partnership with anybody who's excited about that.
So I'm really grateful for all of the generations of Virgin Islanders, all the generations of Black feminists, all the generations of decolonial thinkers who have really made our existence possible, because we just wouldn't be here without that incredible legacy. So it's a privilege to be able to contribute in any way.
My name is Lavon Bell. I'm a visual artist from the Virgin Islands. I'm based in St. Croix, and I'm one of the founding members of the Virgin Islands Studies Collective. Today we had one of the culminating events of a year-long series of symposiums and gatherings. Today we featured Dr. Hadiya Suer and Tiphanie Yanique as writers, thinkers, creatives, really exploring ideas around decoloniality, but through our imagination and our creative pursuits. We were also joined by Dr. Bettina Judd, whose work about feeling, about maybe not so much centering our intellect, but centering how we can feel and how our bodies are sources of knowledge and how we can use that as a way to think through a decolonial practice.
Often this question of love, of feeling, of sovereignty, of the possibility of decolonization, I think becomes increasingly important for us to work out together.
I read a short story called Interment that's going to be included in a VI Noir series of crime fiction with the Akashic Publishers. Tiffany Yanique and Dr. Richard Georges out of the BBI are the editors of the series. And so this short story really centered a political cartoonist from St. John who is really advocating for a key issue as it pertains to land development on island. But she's also really just navigating a lot of the grief, a lot of the sadness that comes up from losing her husband and having a lot of, familial struggles over politics and land.
Mary Magdalene peered in the foggy bathroom mirror. She looked at her face. The ends of a few of her twists were unraveled. She reached to fix one and saw that it was not her face, but Mr. George's wife in the mirror staring back at her.
We had an amazing conversation between Hadiya Suer, myself, and the scholar, philosopher, and professor of African American Studies, Bettina Judd. And we talked about what does it mean to do decolonial work as an individual, as a spiritual person? What does it mean to be in communion with nature? Is that decolonial? We talked about the importance of feeling your full emotional reality, embracing your bravery, but also facing your fears. Whether that means in doing collective work, whether that means in asking hard questions and having hard conversations, or that means learning to swim. So how all of those ways are ways that we thrive in this current reality. And, we also opened it up to questions from the audience. Many audience members were in tears. Many audience members were emotionally moved to joy, and many of them even expressed the ways in which anger can be used to also liberate us. So it was a very emotional day, a day with a lot of feeling.
The father is rowing, but he keeps looking back. His son is standing, that he can see, but the boy is not going. He can see that also. Solo is not running or walking or trying really to go anywhere. So he can feel the sand pulling away grain by grain beneath his feet.
I want people to walk away with a sense of empowerment, a sense of togetherness, a sense that you're not alone, that there are people who care about you, that love you, a sense that your culture matters, that your food matters, that your wine matters, that your imagination matters, and that by sharing those things, that there's this African proverb that says, I am because you are. And so it's this sense that we see each other. And I think that's really the essence of what this weekend is about. I did a performance art walk. I performed pretty much rubbing, creating, I call that work the record of the work of others, where I use wax and I kind of rub so you could really feel like that I'm touching their hands and that history. I really wanted also it to feel like the people that were here were also involved, so there were a lot of moments where they also spoke. There was a call and response. We had an incredible procession throughout the town of Christiansted to honor our ancestors, to honor their maps, and to kind of connect and align with them through the public wells, historic architecture, and the mighty baobab tree.
Thank you. One thing that I would say that you may have noticed in the video is that an important element of this project was that it's multi-generational. So elders as well as children participating at every level. And even when we had the symposium at Emory in Atlanta, we had babies, small children there, elders there. That was a really important part of making sure that a decolonial project has to consider all of us, wherever we might be, and welcome all of us. And also, I want to point out that the last clip that you saw, the dinner was what was called a decolonial dinner, and it was hosted by a group in St. Croix called Good Food. And one of the things that Good Food does as part of their project is try and change this legacy of colonialism in the Virgin Islands, where most Virgin Islanders eat food that's imported from America, and is trying to change the culture of our food industry so that more Virgin Islanders are eating food grown and that's native to the Virgin Islands. So everything that we ate that evening was made by Virgin Islands chefs and was food that was grown and cultivated in the Virgin Islands. So trying to get to different parts of decoloniality as in different kinds of ways. Anyway, thank you guys so very much.
Thank you so much. And we need to connect, Tiffany, because I just completed a documentary about Vieques.
Oh, perfect.
And Vieques has a diasporic population in St. Croix.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're so connected.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. So next we will have.
Yes, we'll talk.
Yeah, we need to talk. Yeah.
Global learning for a lifetime.
Yes.
Thank you for inviting us into this space to share our work with you all. And thank you to our colleagues here who have done beautiful and magnificent work that really uplifts the spirit of global learning. This is a restorative space and really a joy for me to be here with you all today. I am Dr. Heather Scott from Georgia Tech, joined by my dear colleague and grant partner.
I'm Seneca Vaught from Kennesaw State University.
And we are here to share with you our work, our ongoing work with Global Learning for a Lifetime, supporting students at home and abroad. And we will talk with you today about our third phase of this work. So our Global Learning for a Lifetime, supporting students at home and abroad, phase 3, we're going to walk you through our kind of origin story and some overview highlights. So the origins of this work began with an initial call to participate in the AGREC Collaborative Grant. We've done some shifting with institutions over the years, but here we are still maintaining this work. We were inspired by statistical data that indicated the number of Black students who were studying abroad was at a dismal percentage of 5% when you look at the scope of study abroad. So that began our journey on an effort to increase those numbers. And as we have continued with our work, we have also thought about how we can intentionally continue students to be encouraged for that global learning for a lifetime. And our work has evolved into a space of leadership development and postgraduate professional success. Some milestones with that are that we've had embedded short-term travel experiences for students. Along the way, we have joined forces with Delta Airlines. So our work has grown to include a passport initiative that is in collaboration with the leadership of Obse Ababiya at Emory University. And then our good friends within the AGREC Collaborative have continued to support that work, which culminates in an annual symposium, much like our previous colleague here, and we have invitations for that event for you all. So we are continuing that work. We've added an element of a qualitative methodological approach with photo voice, and we'll talk about impact outcomes, new challenges that we're all facing, next steps, and key takeaways. So getting to the root of the problem, I'll turn it over to Dr. Vaught to walk us through that.
So we've been ruminating on this problem for some years now. And when we look at the literature as well as the discussion, the public discussion about this problem, it is complex, which is what makes it appealing to us. Depending on the statistics that you look, the United States sends anywhere from 1% to 10% of its students abroad. I tend to follow the data that says it's closer to 1%, which is abysmally low. And there's been major studies released by professional organizations that are interested in study abroad and that track these numbers. And they have identified a persistent lack of engagement and prioritization of study abroad, particularly among communities of color and underrepresented communities. So part of what made this problem particularly interesting in this phase of the project is, as Dr. Scott mentioned, we're interested in how this might impact long-term economic development, how this might impact also workforce preparation. And just last year, Governor Kemp signed into law 8 bills that specifically address the need for workforce development. However, none of them are attentive to this issue of education abroad and its importance in shaping a prepared workforce for the future. Many of these bills are backward-looking and not really engaging what the future of the industry looks like, whether you're college educated or not. The reality is students must be prepared to engage and have dialogue across multiple borders.
So again, just to walk you through that initial conceptualization, we began in that COVID-ish era. So we met the students where they were with Zoom workshops, et cetera, bringing in guest speakers to talk with them about the concept of global education and introducing them to that concept. And then as we moved into 2022, people were more comfortable with travel and actually embracing the opportunity to study abroad. So we moved into our phase 1 and began our embedded travel cohort opportunities, continued that in our phase 2 work, and have continued on with phase 3. And now we're here in 2025, where we've had our 3rd embedded travel experience. And we just returned from Belize, like 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, where we had a group of 16 students from various institutions, including Emory University, Atlanta Metropolitan State College, Agnes Scott College, Kennesaw State University, and Georgia Tech. Did I capture all of them? Yes. And we were specifically focusing on the Black experience there in Belize and some of the connections with what we're seeing with the Gullah Geechee community and culture in the States as well, working and looking at the Garifuna culture there and learning more about the indigenous cultures in Belize. So some of our milestones, student success milestones that we'd like to highlight was our Paris Noir cohort. Many of those students it was their introduction, their entree, if you will, into global education, securing a passport for the very first time, going through that process and learning what it takes to study and travel abroad. We then moved into our Greece experience the following year, and this year we had our Belizean cohort. So linking back to what we've talked about with the relevance of this work and why it's so very important, when you look at the literature in terms of what employers are looking for in their early hires, their young hires, new professionals, there are 44% of employers say that they would prefer to hire students who have had an exposure to global learning experiences. And when you distill that data even further, if the employer was in the age range of their 40s or younger, that percentage rises to 51%. So we are seeing that there's a core population of our students, students of color, students who have had limited access to global education opportunities, who are leaving their colleges, their institutions, already missing one of those key elements that makes them more marketable in terms of professional success with their postgraduate experience. So that was really the motivation for this continued work. Again, as I referenced the passport initiative that came actually out of the last AGREC Showcase, someone in the audience asked, well, what about passports? What are you doing? So we revisited that matter with our partners at Delta Airlines, and they said, yes, we can work on that. So Obse, under her leadership, and she's doing another panel somewhere in the building right now, but she has been the passport fairy throughout Atlanta, hosting passport days at Clark Atlanta University, Emory University, all of the places. So that has been an integral part of this work. We've also focused on career planning opportunities for our students. So about 40 students have gotten assistance with career planning and professional development to maximize their study abroad experience. Another gap that we were seeing is that students were unable to articulate the experience and to embed that conversation around their global education experiences and how that makes them more competitive in the field. So we're working with intention to advance their knowledge in that area. And then, of course, what's the most treasured moment for us, I think, is the long-term support and mentoring. So we intended for this project to be an entree into global education, but we've had students to go on and apply for Gilman Scholars, to go on to graduate school, and to continue their global education experiences, and we stay connected with those students, invite them back to serve as TAs with the program and mentors to current students who are in the Agile Scholars cohort.
So I'll take you through a typical year and the 4 elements that are the cornerstone of our approach. It begins with, as Dr. Scott mentioned, wraparound support and mentoring. So what we try to do from the very beginning is to minimize any barrier that are traditionally disincentives for students of colors and other underrepresented populations to participate. So what does that mean? It means walking students through applications. It means handling issues with insurance, passport initiative, as she just mentioned, filling out paperwork, et cetera. Because for many students of colors, many have additional responsibilities that make it very difficult. So if you and I know that if you have a email inbox that are full of things that are screaming for your attention, the ones that require multiple steps are likely to be the ones that don't get done. So we tend to intervene, and we use these community sessions to not only talk about some of those logistical requirements, but we also use them to build community and to address many of the cultural impediments or disincentives for students to travel. So they pair up, they're led by institutional champions, and then they can reach out and make other connections that will help expand their professional and academic network. From there, so those community sessions last the entire year. There's pre-departure, there's in-travel, there's post-departure, and then there's long-term investment and commitment. Following that, we usually have, in the middle of the experience, a study abroad trip that students are prepared for. There's pre-travel, there's risk assessment, risk management, cultural awareness. And because of kind of the heightened experience that students of color often encounter racial experiences abroad that require mental prep, as require debriefing when those experiences are encountered, so that they feel that their total person is validated in the study abroad, and they're better prepared to deal with those issues in the future. So then we do the study abroad program itself. As Dr. Scott mentioned, our model has been to work very closely with minority and women-owned businesses to have guides on the ground that are familiar, that are embedded in the community, and not just kind of like flyover type tourism. And then to have the students develop relationships with those guides as well as those community organizations, and so that they can develop those long-term networks that are shown to be one of the most beneficial aspects of education abroad. When we return, we really drill down by helping them to think about how to translate these experiences, not just as like a spring break event where you had a good time in Europe or in the Bahamas or somewhere, but how can you develop a connection with persons that then translate to how you talk about your broader responsibilities as a global citizen to that community as well as to your own, to translate that into your workforce identity and skills. So Delta has been a very strong partner and has helped students actually articulate some of these skills that they pick up in ways that they probably did not consider beforehand. And I'll just give a very quick example of what I mean by that. In colleges and universities, we're obsessed with the major, but in corporate America and in the workforce as a whole, they're obsessed with the skill and the competency. So it doesn't matter if you're in literature, if you're in art, if you're in engineering, if you're in computer science. What they're more interested in is how do you translate those skills in a day-to-day world? How do you demonstrate that? And once the students understand that, oh, well, I had this particular experience while we were in Belize or while I was in France, and I can then apply that amidst a broad variety of tasks that are asked of me, it shows that these skills are not only beneficial for them in the short term, but in the future. So that is an opportunity for them to come in contact with decision makers, gatekeepers, et cetera, that are able to understand those skills and to translate them into immediate needs in the workforce. And lastly, we have the symposium that brings together academics from the area, faculty, staff, students, parents, and other stakeholders that are interested in becoming part of this network. We certainly hope that you'll join us. You've all received an invitation, so I'll be very disappointed if I don't see you. But it's a wonderful kind of capstone experience for our community that affirms the contributions that everyone has made and kind of congratulates them going forward.
So as we come to a close with our work, we're getting the 2-minute notice. I'm going to let Dr. Vaught give a little quick highlight on the Photo Voice project.
So a key element is having students document and narrate and articulate those experiences. And it serves a dual process, and they're able to talk about the experiences that they have, but they're also able to apply them to a range of social issues. So, if you have more questions about this, I can go into detail a little bit later, but we were pleased to report that many of our students feel that these types of projects give them an opportunity to express themselves in ways that otherwise wouldn't be acknowledged.
And so just giving you a highlight review of our key outcomes, you can see our growth in this evolution of this work from phase 1 to phase 3 with the mentoring, the education abroad collaboration, and inclusive program, the skills that are coming from that, and how that all builds up into this denouement of being ready for the workforce and career. So new challenges that we're encountering, of course, we could talk about it ad nauseum with this group is the shifting political climate. How do we balance that? And the mental health needs that we're seeing an increase with our students, helping them through issues of anxiety, et cetera. In our conclusion, we just want to underscore the importance of collaboration and innovation. Interdisciplinary approaches work very well for this work. Leveraging the multi-institutional approach has been an excellent opportunity and resource for us. And being agile, being pivoting, being able to pivot and anticipate the balance and those complex needs of a shifting environment. And then finally, integrating leadership education to empower our students. So not just giving them a support or an assist, but empowering them. So we thank you for your time and attention. We invite you to join us on May 1st. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, how do I start my video then? I'll show you. Am I touching something? Okay, okay, and then I need to click it when it gets to it. There we go. Yep. All right. In 5 minutes, my name is Charmaine Minniefield. I'm the founder of the Praise House Project. We've received funding from AGREC over the years to further our international exchange initiative project. Work is a Seneca. We are returning back to spaces of our ancestral memories. I'm calling the ring show. Which ring? Here we go. Hello. Okay, yes. A full body rhythmic prayer that we would perform in community in what was called praise houses. What you're witnessing is a praise house being rescued from demolition at where it was presented at Emory to acknowledge slavery and dispossession, but it was scheduled for demolition, and we approached Emory and they agreed to donate the structure for the tour around Atlanta to be mounted in spaces of historic erasure. So it's headed now on this clip to where it rested for a year at Beacon Hill, and we acknowledge Beacon Hill as a freedmen's town. We're using that language intentionally because in these communities, that history is not acknowledged in any way. The descendant community is being systematically erased, etc. That's happening along the Southeast, globally actually in all of the South, especially in sensitive areas of climate concern. Our work is inspired by our ancestral memories of the Gullah Geechee community. So we lift up historic preservation work in these communities. The Gullah Geechee community right now is resisting erasure on Sapelo Island, one of the few spaces where our histories are being preserved. We are fighting that erasure today. We're also fighting erasure along the coast in the Gambia, West Africa, and all countries that our families came from. But in particular, Gambia is fully coastal. And because of that, the 6 slave port villages are in danger of being eroded into the ocean. And we are working with the communities locally there to hopefully find resources through networks like these to bring attention to what is the smallest country in West Africa, and what you're witnessing now is the Praise House moving across the city. Well, it will arrive next at Southview Cemetery. It will acknowledge the 1906 Atlanta Race Massacre victims. It'll rest there for a year, and we are partnering with over 26 local organizations. We've worked with some of these folks, even in the building, in order to activate in community and invite reinvestment. In a community that's been affected by historic erasure and trauma, we're inviting reinvestment. So we actually stand and allow for relationships to sort of unfold in the betterment of the vision of the descendants of that community. And we consider this an international impact because, like I said earlier in the panel, because our story of Sankofa is to return back to both the Southeast and our points of entry and uplift our historic preservation efforts and placemaking and placekeeping, but also Sankofa to go all the way home to where we came from in West Africa and stand united against erasure and systemic extraction and global injustice, climate injustice, all of those things still today. And we've appreciated our funding because we've been able to have exchange. We've hosted 4 artists from Senegal and one scholar and oral history historian from the Gambia. And we hope to build relationships in this room to host folks to the Gambia. This summer, we're hosting HBCU students at Southview Cemetery in Atlanta at the Praise House, and then we're going down to the Gullah Geechee Corridor, where we will live with those students for the summer, and we will work to save an actual praise house, a historic praise house that's slipping into the ocean. We will work with a descendant community on St. Helena Island. And our prayer is that by next year, we will host a group of students, not just to South, but also into the Gambia. So thank y'all. Get with me, Praise House Project.